We sample the mouth of the bay. The furthest offshore we go is probably about 30 miles. This survey is one of, if not the longest running shark sampling program, definitely in the United States, if not the world. The first real industrialization of shark fishing was way back in the 50s, and it was to get at the oil that is really rich in shark livers. That's actually how they float. They have really oily livers. But then in 1950, vitamin A became synthetically produced, and that's what was in the livers that they were after in that fishery. So the fishery kind of died out. Well, then of course, the sharks rebounded from all of that fishing pressure. And this sort of coincided with declining populations of other commercially important species. And so in the 70s, sharks were deemed an underutilized natural resource. But there was no fishing regulations in place, none of that. Commercial fishermen were still encouraged to shift their focus onto sharks for commercial harvest, despite the lack of regulations in place. So that created too much fishing pressure that the sharks can withstand, especially how slow growing sharks are. They can't sustain a lot of fishing pressure. And so the populations declined pretty drastically. Some estimates range all the way up to 90% declines. The national government decided too much overfishing. They started implementing regulations in 1993. And we knew once we implemented these regulations, it would probably take a couple of decades to start seeing that recovery for most shark species. Well, we're a couple of decades after 1993, and things are starting to recover, which is great to see. So the basic idea of the surveys is to get a sense of population size. We're looking at relative abundance. So you can imagine we have this scientifically designed survey, and we go out and we fish all of our usual locations one year, and we catch, 10 or 100 sharks, and then the next year we go out and we catch 150 sharks. We know that the population of sharks has increased, and that's a really big part of how we assess size and health of fish populations. So I'm really interested in assessing the population of coastal sharks in the Atlantic Ocean. So I'm interested in how we use fisheries independent surveys to track relative changes in population size over time. And I'm interested in how, once we assess the shark populations, how we can take that information and set management advice and recommendations to make sure that we're managing sharks in a healthy way. The main value of the data set is in stock assessments. So the Southeast Fisheries Science Center is a branch of NMFS, the National Marine Fisheries Service, and they do stock assessments. So they're looking at population size, whether we're fishing too much, looking at different indicators of population health, and a primary data input for them are these indices of relative abundance, and that's what we're getting through the surveys. So the VIMS longline is a pretty valuable data set for them because of its temporal longevity, right? It's one of the longest surveys that we have. And so that's, the most important reason for why we're doing what we're doing.